we kind of already started the conversation. For those of you joining online, I apologize, and we'll just continue the conversation. People here with me here. So we've just been having a conversation while we've been working out our technical issues as well. So let me kind of go back and talk a little bit about some of the bills that I'm running this year. I'm running quite a few bills. I'll have to see if I can remember all of them. Just kind of hit on some of the ones that I feel is really important to me by former state treasurer Dave Damschen, and I've been working with the current state treasurer in his office on this, as well as finance experts from Zions Bank. And what this has to do with is how we review and provide oversight for our debt obligations as a state. This is a little bit down in the agencies, political cities and subdivisions deal with those is authority and also state bonds for whatever off those bonds. So to get approval from this, created the commission, but this commission could then write back some. Oftentimes in the legislature, when we talk about our bonding, and we think about our debt obligations, there's a constitutional limit or a statutory limit to and this is what we. But the problem with that perspective, that's if you can afford it, or if it's a good idea. So that's what this debt review. So is basically give feedback on, is this a good idea, and really protect bond rating and make sure that we're being very judicious with our bonding. So it's a little bit technical, and I've had to learn a lot about finance and general obligation bonds and bonds and all this stuff. The bill that I'm running this year, actually similar to a bill that I ran last year, would create a people on the dangers of drinking alcohol pregnant. As a underage drinking and helps to be focused on life disabilities, and which is 100% preventable birth defect. So this program would provide funding to the Department of Health and Human Services, which would operate go and put it into different counties throughout the state that works with different agencies and education, working with local doctors' offices and retail establishments to kind of get the word out in their local communities about it. So it would be kind of more of a grassroots outreach effort. Yeah. And so I ran this bill last year. Didn't quite get the support, but the funding mechanism passed, and so I've changed the mechanism for it. So I'm stick this year. No. And then, so I'm running a bill on, I'm trying to think of all my bills. So I can talk about one about disabled parking. So I have a great, his name's Mike Schlappy. His daughter and my daughter were friends when they were in school. And he's a 4-time Paralympian, and it's the wheelchair basketball program for the Utah Jazz. So he had lunch a couple months ago and said, hey, oftentimes he'll go and with Disabilities Act passed in 1990, so I'm 32 years old now. 32 years old. And now, temporary knee surgery, more so are full. Part for out. Unfortunately, has parking, and those other the disabled parking spaces are wider. That gives him the room to get in and out with his wheelchair, and now he can't get into his vehicle. I'll have to find a stranger and say, hey, can you move my car so I can get in? And it's a real inconvenience for him. So once he explained it to me and I understood that problem, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So here's the solution that I'm going to propose to the legislature this year, is to handicap parking permit, but add an additional sticker on there that says this is a wheelchair specific handicap sticker. So it's like a different class of handicap permit, and then designate that of the existing handicap spaces, we wouldn't need to add handicap spaces, but of the ones that we have, so 1 out of every 5 would have to be for wheelchairs only, with a minimum of 1. So if a small business only has 2 parking spaces, 1 would have to be for wheelchairs, and then the other one would be, and the rest of the spaces, so 80% of the spaces would still be available to everybody else that has one of those permits. That's my idea. Sure. Just because they want to park close, but it's not a permanent handicap sticker to take spots for people like the wheelchair. Yeah, and it's not just that those spaces are the closest to the door. That's one of the characteristics, but they're also wide to accommodate and give people room to get in and out with, a wheelchair and things like that. No, I mean, there's no requirement. Well, there is a requirement in the Disability Act that depending on site business, that you have to have parking space designated for handicap parking. So, and that means that there would have to be some sort of signage or something to indicate that this is a wheelchair-only space, and then a different kind of permit that says it's a wheelchair-specific. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is a doable solution. I think we have to, I'm still working out the details on what the permit would look like and what the signage would have to be. So I'm hoping to wrap that up as soon as I can, since the session starts on Tuesday. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think so. And I've already I've been getting a lot of calls about it. In fact, KSL interviewed me the other day, so it's getting some media attention. And I had somebody call me just out of the blue yesterday and just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. His son has been in a wheelchair, and he just thinks it's really needed. I'm getting a lot of feedback like that. So, yeah. So those are some of the bills that I'm running this year. I've got several others that I'm running. I'm running a resolution on climate change. I'm still working out the wording on that. I'm running a resolution on just thanking the cities that participated in ranked choice voting this year, since I ran the bill on ranked choice voting last year and we just had that election. So I'm doing a couple things like that people have asked me to do. I think those are the I'm looking at. I am looking also, since I'm working a lot on outdoor recreation. So I chair this commission on outdoor recreation, and we're looking at different projects, but we're still in the sort of the planning and data gathering phase with the Outdoor Recreation Commission. So one of the things I am looking at is potentially dedicating some revenue for outdoor recreation. For example, off-road vehicles, when you buy a four-wheeler or a side-by-side and you register that, a portion of that registration fund. So the people buying those vehicles are the ones that are providing the money to use. So it's kind of, it's very focused on users. The users are the ones that are providing that funding. And so Off-Road Vehicles has that. There's a similar type of revenue source for boating. Funding source. So with the climbing equipment that from that would then be put into a fund that could help fund trails and trailheads and bathrooms and that we need. We do that, but the funding is very intermittent, and it's not certain. There's not like a steady source of revenue. There's revenue for state parks because you pay a fee, but outside a state park or a national park, there's not really something like that that's a steady, reliable source. Yeah, kind of a user fee. So I'm just finalizing the list of items, and it wouldn't necessarily add an additional tax to those. It would just say, we're going to take a portion of the sales tax from these items and put it into this fund. So, I'm just trying to get the list of what those items might be, and then, so. Mm-hmm. Correct. So there is a sales tax that's a state sales tax rate, and then cities and local entities in certain circumstances can impose an additional sales tax if they so choose. So, for example, I think there is an additional sales tax in Salt Lake County, and then some cities that are designated as kind of like a tourism cities. If you've got this kind of designation, you can add additional sales. Moab, local sales tax. They have a lot of visitors, so they need revenue. Other places might have because visitors. Mhm. Tax commission basically does that. Yeah, and the way that get tax. We're just talking tax. Sales tax. The local sales tax works. It cities have retail and some city that cities don't have. So what it is located, and the other half of money for the whole state, and then it's distributed. Even cities that don't have any retail, the people that live in there somewhere, a lot of even small towns, they look. One of the things the legislature this year, is going to be things that towns, their main source of revenue might be the that they have. And so if you take that sales tax on food away, it could really impact these smaller communities. And that's something that maybe a lot of. Mhm.
Taxes or something, and I'm not a believer. I think the sales tax is important thing to keep even on food, especially food, because everybody likes.
Um, so we can tax income, which we do, we tax consumption. Sales tax is a tax on consumption. Income tax is a tax on, and so yeah, I was just at the Taxpayer Association conference that they had this week downtown, and this is one of the points that was made was, in fact, I think it was President Adams. Income at 100%. No one. Reduce taxes on income because it's a tax on productivity, and shift that a little bit more to, I think the most fair taxes are, taxes on user fees, tax the people that use that service the most, and then consumption. And then there's also property tax, another thing that people, which is a tax on tax people's wealth. We'll go. We have sales tax at the state. But sales tax does. If the economy goes down, people stop buying big cars and draper furniture stores, RV dealerships, and those areas drop. Turn. Food, buy food, and so that's why you start. And I know that we want to, we don't want to, but you want to fund. And things like that. Revenue to cover those costs.
So the most consistent sales tax is on food.
Yeah, when it comes, yeah. That's especially important for, a small community that might be their main source of revenue. They might have a local gas station and a small, in town, you think about these small towns like Kanab or some of these other places. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Our youngest son lives in Arkansas. Their sales tax is almost 10%.
Yeah.
But they have very low income tax. And they have very
Right.
low property tax.
Right.
And so I think that having the higher sales tax is better than having the higher income tax because it goes back to that same issue. Everybody pays their fair share or a fair share.
Yeah.
When you tax productivity like on wages, you have a lot of people like me that are retired.
Mm-hmm.
So our tax is dramatically dropped.
Yeah. Different, some states have no income tax, and everybody's got a different mix. Part of the reason why we do it, we do in Utah, for example, we don't have a statewide property tax. Well, I forget the number. It's a high number. 85% of the land in the state of Utah is owned by the federal government. So that greatly reduces generating economic.
Midwest where
And all that land is generating revenue. It's different. It's a completely different scenario. It's a huge issue for Utah. Huge. Yes.
Are there funds from the federal government for trust lands or, I don't know.
So there is something called the federal government is supposed to pay the state of Utah to reimburse us for the lost revenue from all that federal land. It's called payment in lieu of taxes, PILT. But the federal government has not been paying those, certainly not at the level that it's reflects the. And so that's something that the state has been trying with the federal government really, really hard. So that is a huge issue, but there's probably, I don't know if I'll ever fix that. That's some of those lands over, a lot of Forest Service, just national parks. It's huge tracts of BLM, Forest Service land. Like, good something else. It's a huge issue. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, there are some counties, something like Emory County or Garfield. I forget which counties that like literally 95% of that county is federal land. And so it severely limits the opportunity for them to do anything. Over 95% of the land in your county is federal land, then they're stuck. There's not much you can do with So,
Thinking about that, I was born in lovely downtown.
uh-huh.
About 60-some years ago. The Trill Army Depot,
Mm-hmm.
is that, I don't know if it's something the state can work with the federal government. I mean, I know they're trying to develop some of that property for some businesses, but I mean, obviously the federal government owns all that.
Yeah.
That are associated with that. That's quite.
I don't know a lot about that. I should ask some of the represent. It's a good question, but some of the representatives that represent the area, I should ask them because I'm sure they know.
I mean, that's a lot of.
Little. Yeah.
Back to some of these counties where most of their county.
Can't really even utilize it or develop.
That issue in Utah is.
It's
That's a huge.
you're right.
Having this conversation.
Yeah, it is huge.
I mean, it's like turning on
Yeah.
50 light bulbs in my house.
Yeah, it's something that I wasn't fully aware of the issue and all of the implications of it until I was in the legislature. But boy, I've heard a lot about it since I've been
Especially
working up there.
Nicely explain how the property taxes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Income.
Yeah.
State.
Obviously, we want to keep taxes as low as we can, and we want to have them as fair as possible. And leave the burden on especially low income. We try to do that. And so last year in the 2021 session, we did some targeted tax cuts. We reduced taxes on veterans benefits, on Social Security, and we restored the child tax credit. So that benefits, targeted tax cuts to those that felt like needed the most. So this year there's a talk about another tax increase, tax cut, and it just depends on how we that's done, whether it's a reduction to income tax or whatever we might do. I mean, a lot of people, like reduction to income tax, but then people worry about, is that going to for education, things like that? Because I know we've got other proposals to do things. Money, do we have enough funding there? We'll be debating and have lots of different conversations about. So, are there any questions online? Nothing? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was a kid. Kindergarten was like a 3-week program in August.
Well, but they found that there are undeniable benefits from having kids in kindergarten and giving that extra schooling. There's good studies that have been done about that. So I'll
Education was it?
yeah. Well, that's something that I've heard a lot about. But yeah, I was yeah. So that's a discussion that we're going to be having as well.
I think a lot of that too. Like, it has to do with, you have a lot of, we move to Utah, and we find that you have
For last year, September, but anyway, it was the highest since 1982. But in that, they don't include in that calculation gas.
what?
Yeah, exactly. So at the Taxpayers Association, they said that if you include those, the inflation rate's closer to 15% right now. And a lot of, and
Energy is not counted in that.
it's just something that the economists, like, here's the general inflation rate, and they have like a formula they always use, but yeah, they don't include some of those things because I think it's because there's a lot of volatility or something like that, especially like in gas prices, the volatility and things like that, it's up and down. So but certainly we feel it when we go to the gas pump or the grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Well, I love this rice pudding stuff. That
Yeah.
you get at Walmart. It's like
Mhm.
it's one of my vices. It's just put this rice pudding. And it used to be like $2.48 for this little
Mhm.
tub of rice pudding. I got some the other night at Walmart. It's up 60 cents. From
Wow.
like 45 or 2.43. It was 3.18.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally gone up 70 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is literally like 30%
Yeah. Yeah.
in like 2 months. So food and energy is more like 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something we're definitely feeling that.
Well, and
Yeah.
then, that's why but you see how early childhood development, so you have massive numbers of people in Utah that the husband and wife both work outside of home, so they have daycare.
Right. Right.
And, we watch a grandchild, one a day a week, every week.
Mhm.
Our daughter works, their husband works, and nobody makes any money, but they have to have that daycare, but the daycare costs.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, daycare is very expensive, and part of it is that there's, every industry is feeling a lack of people to do the job, to do the work, and so that's another area that is suffering from, low on.
Wages would get to that. I mean, the average
Mhm.
wages, I know there's some bills out there to raise the federal minimum wage. I think Mitt Romney
Yeah.
about how they're trying to look at the minimum wage for the federal to up to $11 an hour or something.
There's definitely, especially at the federal level, there's a lot of discussion about increasing the federal minimum wage. But right now, the economy, because there's so few workers, people have to pay more money to attract workers. And so the market and the market is raising those wages. There's a lot of wage inflation, a lot of pressure to raise wages. So I think it makes the federally mandated minimum wage kind of a moot point, and
Yeah, I got this email last
Yeah.
night. The federal minimum wage is $11 an hour, but
or I've heard,
it's
yeah,
up to 15,
yeah.
but I think it's sort of negotiating like 11. I'm like,
Well-
I don't think you could hire anybody around here for $11 an hour, they would take your job.
Hey, we're offering $15, and sometimes it's like my brother. John, even aides, and yeah, because a lot of them were paid kind of in that same range, but some,
Well,
Yeah.
I pulled in McDonald's in Fort Union yesterday, and where you pull up the drive, and they have big, where the garbage dumpster is.
Uh-huh.
You have big signs, scan here, $14 an hour.
Yeah.
$1,000 reimbursement for education.
Oh yeah, people offering more and more incentives to hire people.
There's no place like,
Yeah.
you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Don't have
Yeah.
Big help on the side.
Yeah. And then we know we go to use help restaurants close early because they just don't have the help, and now it's exacerbated because we have a lot of people that are out sick right now. So yeah, it's definitely a huge issue. It's affecting everybody. It's affecting state government, local government, teachers. Yes, yeah. So, yeah, yeah. Are there any other topics that we want? We can talk all day, but if it's all fine, you find me, and I will be posting videos to my social media and sending out newsletters every single week during the legislative session that starts on Tuesday. So Tuesday, we're off and running with the legislative session. My emails, for sure.
You're like the only state registrar representative that ever responds to me.
That I might be, but sometimes a couple weeks, but I do try to stay on top of it. So, yeah.
2 thumbs up on that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
We just want to say how much we appreciate your service.
Thank you so much.
It's like, did you figure out like 50 cents an hour or something?
I would hate to calculate the hourly rate. It would be depressing to look at. So I don't worry about it. But yeah, it's actually an honor to serve. I love this area, love this community. So I appreciate it. Thanks. All right.
Yeah. Seriously, we're glad about that.
We're done.